Alright everyone, so today's going to be a continuation of my key Senate races analysis series. We're going to be staying in the southwestern United States and looking at the state of Arizona. So for this race, we're going to have Democratic challenger Mark Kelly go up against incumbent Republican Martha McSally. Now the reason why there is a to be determined here for the Republican is because Martha McSally does have a primary challenger, Daniel McCarthy. But I don't really think he's going to get anywhere. Again, we have no polling from this primary at all, so I have no idea which way this race is going to go, this primary race. But I can almost be certain that Martha McSally, at the end of the day, regardless of the percentage, is going to get the nomination. Of course, Mark Kelly is running unopposed right now, so he's likely to be the Democratic nominee. He basically is at this point. Of course, for rankings, a lot of polling agencies have this race as a toss-up. Sabado's Crystal Ball has it as a lean Democrat race, and of course, this other bottom one, which I can't pronounce, says that this polling agency is not reliable in any way. They're very biased toward Democrats in every race, and I think that's not helpful when you try to objectively look at which way this Senate race is going to go based on trends, results, and of course, polling. But likely Democrat, it's not going to be that big of a blowout. I can guarantee you it's not going to be that big, not even close. Of course, in the aggregate polls here, we have Mark Kelly at 49, leading Martha McSally by 40. Again, I don't know how reliable some of these polls are, because some of the polls where Martha McSally is in 30, well, that's Mark Kelly poll. But some of the polls where the difference is very, very large, I think are not very reliable. Like this 36-48 Mark Kelly poll, that's not going to be reliable because at the end of the day, the result's going to be much closer than that. And we all know that even if Mark Kelly takes a seat, he's going to have to fight for it. It's not going to be just handed to him. Martha McSally is not a popular incumbent, but Arizona is still a lean red state, so it might not even matter. However, we're going to be looking at the 2016 presidential results as well as the midterms to kind of get a better sense at where Arizona is going to be come this race. So in 2016, Donald Trump won this state by only 3.5 percentage points. That's the smallest margin a Republican has won Arizona since 1996, since it's been consistently red for Republicans. Last time a Democrat won it was in 1996. Bill Clinton won it by a few points, I believe. If we look at the county results, though, Maricopa County, which is by far the most populous county in Arizona, barely went to Donald Trump. It went to him by 747,000 votes to Hillary Clinton 702,000 votes, or 47.7% to 44.8%. But if we look at the change from 2012, here in Maricopa County, Republicans lost 2,000 votes and Democrats gained 100,000. So that kind of shows you that in the state of Arizona, Donald Trump was not a popular candidate. And he did win the primary in this state, to be fair. But overall, in a general electorate where independents tend to lean for Republicans, he was not a very popular option. Hence why Gary Johnson got 4.1% of the vote and why all of these other candidates combined got around 2.5 to 3% of the vote. So it really goes to show that the enthusiasm was not really there. However, Donald Trump still did win this state by 3.5 percentage points, which is a significant deal. Yuma County is not really much of a swing county. It doesn't really have that many people. Pima County is a county that McSally is going to have to do a little bit better, and I think she will do better than Trump did. As we're going to see in 2018, she did, but I think she'll do even better than that in 2020, regardless of whether she wins or loses, because this right here in this general area was where her former House seat was, which actually flipped Democrat after she left the seat in 2018. But again, when we look at the trends, and we'll go back to the trends, most of Arizona, at least I'd say like half of Arizona just about, is trending more Democratic since the 2012 election. And that could be for a variety of factors. We could see Arizona shift back to the Republicans. But again, this is a state that's demographically changing. Maricopa County is becoming a lot more urban and suburban as it's like literally growing, bursting at the seams. Thousands and thousands of people are moving to Arizona every single year, and that's ultimately going to change the political dynamic of the state, which in a lot of ways may make it less favorable to Republicans. Again, the rising Hispanic population, and Republicans tend to have a ceiling with Hispanic voters depending on the state, but eventually at some point it's going to be a very, very hard-fought campaign for any Republican that wants to try to win Arizona. They'll have to up their margins in that regard. If we go to 2018, Martha McSally lost against Kyrsten Sinema. Now, this was a completely open seat. John Kyle, who was the incumbent, said he was going to retire at the end of the year, which triggered an election for this seat. Kyrsten Sinema won with 50% of the vote to Martha McSally's 46%. If we actually break down the results, Kyrsten Sinema won pretty decisively in Maricopa. She got 51% of the vote to Martha McSally's 46.8%, which was a good showing for any Democrat, because in order to win Arizona, you need to win Maricopa County. So if Martha McSally intends to keep this seat, she's going to have to hold on to this county for dear life. Now, keep in mind, this was a midterm. There is a different dynamic here in the state. Because during midterms, Democrats were fired up. They turned out in record numbers, in some states, nearly presidential election numbers to try and vote against Donald Trump. They were energized because they were the opposition party out of power. Again, the only place that Kyrsten Sinema did a little bit worse than Hillary percentage-wise, or margin-wise, whatever, is Pima County, because Martha McSally does have some roots in the southeastern part of the state where her former congressional district was. But again, other races during the Arizona 2018 midterms were more favorable to Republicans overall, some just barely. But anyway, this was the last time this seat was up, and of course Martha McSally lost. She became a senator because Doug Ducey appointed her after the seat was open. There was another seat, which was John McCain's seat, which is now the one that's up for election in the special and will be up again in 2022. So whoever wins this election in 2020 is going to have to go up again in 2022 for a full term. But let's look at some of the polling here. So originally, when we look at the polling, 538 has a plethora of polls here. It does not look good for Martha McSally. This Kelly poll is 5138. This poll has him up 5142, a 9-point lead, 3-point lead, 6-point lead, 12-point lead, 7-point lead. But if we narrow it down to polls that are only A- or A+, we get a much closer result, which is what I think ultimately this Senate race is going to look like. We have 50-44 for Kelly here. This is an A+ poll, so around 6 points. Again, the results aren't necessarily going to be exactly like the polls. They could be a couple points off, and that's what the margin of error is for. And this is among registered voters. Of course, this poll's also among registered voters. Kelly's up by 3, so it's a little bit less. Martha McSally does better, but Kelly does worse, probably because some people are more undecided in this poll. Real Clear Politics, which I don't really trust as much as I used to, because a lot of their polls have been very off, especially in the primaries. And even in 2016, some of their polling was a little bit off. So I take their polls with a grain of salt, because some of their polls are kind of out there. Like a Univision poll is always going to be biased towards Democrats. They always have been. They're not really reliable in polling. Likewise, Mason-Dixon is always going to be biased toward the Republicans, and I don't really trust their polls very much. But anyway, the aggregate here has Kelly at +9, which I think is not accurate, because some of these polls that seem a little less reliable have Kelly up by crazy margins. Kelly being up by 6 or 5 is very probable, and he probably is. And ultimately, I don't think that'll be the margin of the election, but it could be somewhere in that range. If Kelly wins, it'll probably be by a couple points. Likewise, if McSally wins, it'll probably be by just a couple points. This is going to be a down-to-the-wire Senate race regardless. I know the polls don't show that, but the fact that a Democrat is polling this well in a lean red state like Arizona bodes very well for Mark Kelly, because even if he only wins by a point, that's still a win regardless. So the last thing we're going to be looking at, and now again, this is just a short analysis. I'll be making a more detailed Senate race breakdown series in September or October, where I really go in depth as we have more information on these races. But if we look at the exit polls here, McSally barely won. She tied with Sinema with males in Arizona and lost females by around 3 points. So it was a very close result overall. Of course, among 65 and older, Sinema actually won, which is very bad for McSally. 50-64, McSally won by around 9 points, 10 points. 9 points. If we go to race, McSally did very poorly among the white vote. She only got 53% to Sinema's 45%, and with the Latino vote, she only got 30%. As we're going to see, we can look at the governor's race. The governor got 44% of the Latino vote, and he's a Republican. So that is really poorly for Martha McSally in trying to win this state by a comfortable margin. Again, non-white voters breaking for Sinema 68-31, white voters 54 Sinema, 53 McSally. So ultimately, you know, again, among white women, McSally did sort of struggle. White men, she did a little bit more better, but still, these are not really the best results for a Republican in the state of Arizona, especially with the white vote. But if we go to 2016, when the state went red by a couple percentage points, we'll notice a few key differences. Of course, Donald Trump won the mail vote by 13 points. McSally literally tied the mail vote. Clinton won the mail vote by only 4 points in this race. The female vote, sorry, she won the female vote by 4 points. Looks like Sinema did around the same, so that seems to be a constant factor here. We have less age information about the 2018, but if we go to race, the white vote went 14 points for Donald Trump in 2016. But if we go to 2018, I missed it. If we go to 2018, the white vote only went by 8 points to Martha McSally. So again, she's struggling with white voters. She's struggling with Latino voters. If we go to Latinos in Arizona, wow, oh my God. Latino men apparently voted 51-42 for Clinton. 42 is a large margin, but if we just go to Latinos overall, 31%. Here it's 30. Not much has changed, so the Latino vote has changed. 18% turnout for them there. 15% turnout, but the white turnout is still 75 in both cases. So ultimately, again, Martha McSally needs to do better with the white vote, and a lot of the white vote in Arizona is becoming increasingly more suburban, and a lot of them are from more liberal areas like California, New York. They're from the north. They're northern transplants. They're not from the state, so they have more liberal leanings. So she's going to have to give them a reason why she is a better candidate than Mark Kelly, because they seem to be gravitating towards moderate candidates. Because overall, Arizona is much more of a moderate state, at least in tone and rhetoric, because for some reason that's what they care about a lot. Hence why if we go to 2016, if we look at the Senate race here in Arizona, not a Verizon ad, if we go to a Senate race in Arizona here, John McCain won by 13 points, and though he was a very well-known senator in the state, that's still a very comfortable margin. Doug Ducey won by even more. He won by 16, not just 13 points. So ultimately, there's a lot of factors that are going to play in this race. Right now, based on the polling, I would put this race as tilt Democrat. I think this race does favor Mark Kelly. Martha McSally is not popular, and she's not very... Martha McSally is not popular or very well liked in the state. A lot of people see her as too pro-Trump, and some of the Republican base don't see her as being for Trump enough. So she's kind of between a rock and a hard place with a lot of the electorate here in Arizona. She's going to have to do a lot to try and, you know, at least win the state by a point or so, because I think it's going to come down to the wire either way, regardless of who wins. If Trump wins Arizona by a larger margin, that certainly helps McSally, because he's going to try to take her over the edge. But this is one of those seats that is very vulnerable. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching this video. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel. I'll be uploading more videos in this key Senate race analysis playlist, so please be sure to check those out. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.